Hello and welcome back to Pinstripe Pulse. One game in, 1-0. Yankees on pace to go 162-0. We went there. We're talking about it. Opening day review and some interesting transactions. Let's hit it.
Let's talk about it.
Hello and welcome back to Pinstripe Pulse. My name is Liam. I am joined by Jake, as always. How's it going, Jake?
Not too shabby. Got a nice Friday evening at this point, early evening, late afternoon, 4:18. I don't know. It's a weird time. But we've got our own opening day this weekend for the Hudson Hurricanes kicking off tomorrow evening as well. So not only has the MLB season started, but ours is about to start right now. But we had quite the day yesterday at Yankee Stadium, didn't we?
Nice, brisk, sunny day over at the stadium. Some opening weekend jitters for us on two ends as fans and also as players. But it was nice to see the Yankees get a comfortable 5-0 win against the Giants. I don't know, where do we start there? Do you want to start with the Anthony Volpe hype train and the feel good energy from the game yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, I think we should definitely start with the energy overall of the crowd. Like, I felt like Yankee Stadium had a revamped feel to it, oddly enough, even though it seemed like very subtle changes. There were definitely atmospheric moves that they made that were super teeny tiny and subtle, but it kind of added to the fan experience. It was a lot more efficient getting through the stadium to actually enter the gates. So that was really impressive. Like, it was packed by the time I got there, which was about 11:30. You got there at 11. So we had very
Yep.
easy times getting to our seats, despite we do have clear, just so everyone knows, we have full transparency. We can get to our seats pretty quickly, but like even going through the normal admissions, it was really like super simple for people that were just entering the stadium. I think that set the tone really well, though, despite the cold weather. It felt like playoff atmosphere to an extent. The vibes are just really good and positive everywhere, like through and through. I don't think we saw any like real fights break out. I feel like every time we've been to a game together, we've seen some kind of tension brewing. Um, that there was a few times where dudes were going at it quite a bit and got chewed out, but that did not happen this time, and it felt really good. And I think a lot of that was because of the way the team performed all in all. And Volpe looked amazing as shortstop. I think that's all we could have asked for. Playing clean defense. He made that one rangy play where he had to get to the ball right in front of him. That was kind of in between a slow roller and like a chopper, where he still had to glove the ball but had a quick release. So his arm looked like there's no issues there. He his first at bat, looking back at it was very difficult from where we were sitting to actually see what the strike zone looked like. But it looked like
Laz Diaz was bad. He was bad
it was
yesterday.
terrible.
We
It
thought that
was
he was good. It was really bad. When you look at the video, it was an awful performance from Laz Diaz behind the plate yesterday.
We couldn't really see anything on the left side of home plate, let alone right side. It was very difficult from our angle, but like there were a few that looked very on the black. And then you go back and watch the video, it's like that ball is like 6 inches outside. Like it's not even close. Um, so all things considered, we saw some really good takes out of him, his first at bat especially, and some aggressive hacks at the same time. So it's like everything you kind of want to see out of a young player from both sides of the ball. I think he blended in and meshed so perfectly with this team. And then, of course, Aaron Judge did his thing and Garrett Cole looks stupendous, but we can get into that. But what did you think?
Yeah, it was great vibes all around. I mean, like you said, the Yankees have a bunch of changes to add to the fan experience a bit this year between their promotional food deals and some of the advertisements and boards they have up. It was awesome getting in. I mean, all positivity going through. And, last year we played the Red Sox and it was slightly tense and it was still a fun environment. But this year, I don't think the Giants are a great team. We were celebrating Judge being the new captain, and Judge hit a home run in his first at bat, and Garrett Cole struck out 8 of his first 9 outs were strikeouts, and minus his brief 4-pitch walk to start the game, he was lights out. Volpe with the bleacher creature roll call, he kissed the NY and gave a glove salute to the fans. I mean, you know, whereas there's usually tension, coming down the stretch with the team, it was no tension. It was a great celebration of baseball for some of the most diehard fans who make it to opening day. Not that you have to be at opening day to be a diehard, but the people who take off work and make time in their day to go see opening day, especially on a cold day like yesterday, a cold, windy day where we were sitting in the shade. It was really, really cool, man. Aaron Judge is unreal. It's still kind of, especially now being faced with the potential loss of playing against the team that he might have played for. I think we kind of took for granted because it was such like this atmosphere and this like predictable moments when he hit home runs down the stretch last year, and coming in this year and just seeing him do it, like he hammered that ball. I know it barely got out, but it went dead center on a cold, windy day. Like I think Volpe said it in his press conference that I thought he got all of it. I thought it was out off the bat and it just snuck out. I mean, it's a different level of power. Like those don't go out in March, but Aaron Judge hits them out. It was a really fun day all around. Our top performers, the guys who we were excited for, Cole, Judge, Volpe, really great performances out of them. I know Volpe didn't come away with a hit, but he worked a walk. He had some good fielding, and he got his first stolen base of his hopefully league leading stolen bases this year, so I can hit big on a bet that I made before the season started. But yeah, it was a great atmosphere all around.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be thrilled with what you saw out of Cole, especially too. That's probably one of the better performances he's had early in the season for the Yankees, and it just the way that he set the tone early. He didn't look like he was stressed at all, which I think is a big thing for Cole. It seems kind of like he's in that let it be section of like his tenure here, where he's not going to be like stressing or emphasizing like everything needs to be perfect. Because we saw quite a bit of worked counts where he was 2-2, 3-2. And rather than like panicking or trying to nibble, he was still just going right after guys. And granted, that's not a great Giants lineup that they were facing, but at the same time, it's still professional hitters nonetheless. And he made pretty good work of like each and every one of them, except for a few exceptions there. His fastball was sitting, 96, 97 the entire game. And it still, I think it dialed up to 97, maybe 98 a few times in the sixth inning. We were a little surprised that he went out for that sixth inning as well. But he clearly was feeling good enough to go closer to 100 pitches. I don't know what his final pitch count was. It had to have been close to like at least
92.
95. 92, there we go. So, I mean, that's a healthy spot where you want to be early in the season. And like he showed no little indications of slowing down whatsoever. So I'm really excited to like what we saw from him. I think that's a great tone setter for guys like Nestor, and then the younger dudes coming up as well, like Brito and also Herman Schmidt. All those guys should follow by example at this point. And then everyone in the lineup had at least like a hit for the most part, except Waldo had a really tough day, but I wouldn't, hang the hat on him too hard for that, just having a little bit of a mishap the first day. I think he was very overzealous just coming into Yankee Stadium first opening day. He has got that golden retriever personality. I think it might have gotten the best of him to an extent, but I'm not concerned about that whatsoever. We talked a lot about Glaber being a top trade piece just because the Yankees have shown no desire to extend him. And I still believe that that's probably where he sits as a Yankee, but it's not, you can't deny that he wouldn't provide value to this team this season because he clearly is feeling it at the plate right now. He went 2 for 4, I believe, with a homer to right field, and him going oppo is exactly what you need out of a batter like him. Him trying to pull the hell out of the ball is not what you need. So he showed a good approach to start the season so far, a more mature, refined approach at the plate. So if we hold on to him, that's great. But I still think that they have a lot of questions when it comes to the middle infield outlook moving forward with Peraza starting at AAA.
Yeah, so many things there. I mean, a few quick things. If you can bet Garrett Cole the over on strikeouts. Last year he led MLB in strikeouts. He had over 300 strikeouts, I think, right?
No, it was
Or
250, I think, or something like that. It was a
250 or
Yankees
two.
record. Yeah.
I think it was 270 something actually now that I think about it, but his line is set at like 225 or like 230. And that's assuming injury. Last year Garrett Cole didn't, and it was a shortened spring training, but he didn't throw more than 5 innings in like his first 4 or 5 starts. So he's going to rack up innings. He went 6 innings, 92 pitches in a March start, which I did not think was going to happen, but he looked really good. And he felt good, which is the important thing. So that's what we want to see from Garrett. Oswaldo, yeah, definitely came in with the young kid opening day kind of jitters. Like I know he was up last year. But he had that energy. He was really attacking balls, like he was swinging hard. He had a decent approach to the plate. One of his strikeouts was really bad. Was like a 6 inches off the plate strikeout looking. Where I from our section, which is right by the right field foul pole, we couldn't see it. So not too concerned about Waldo going 0 for 4. It's one game. I want to talk about Anthony Volpe. And, yesterday, a friend of the pod and our friend June Lee came out with an article that moved me more than I thought it would. He gave an insight into Volpe's growing up on the Upper West Side in New York and moving out to Jersey, but also his parents being like lifelong Yankees fans and, sleeping outside Yankee Stadium to wait for bleacher tickets for big games and stuff. And his dad growing up being a WFAN caller. And when after Volpe was first drafted, getting into it with people on Twitter before he had to shut it down because his kid was a budding superstar. It really pulled the heartstrings as a kid who grew up playing baseball in New York and, that whole grind and, dreaming, playing for the Yankees and whatnot. This kid's really living his dream. And I think June alluded to it in his article. It's like he was made in a New York Yankees lab. A few people have said, in terms of the demeanor, that professionalism, like he gave a 9.5-minute post-game interview after the game, which was like awesome and open, but it was still very Yankee. It was still like down to earth, like kind of protective of the crest, it was really cool to see him kind of experience those emotions and also to excel because like we spoke about it a bit yesterday, he's going to be hitting 9 for a while despite his eye and hitting potential. Like he projects as a 1-2 hitter long term, but even when he's not contributing with the bat, he worked a good walk, stolen base threat always. I think he's going to have a lot this year. And defensively, he was very solid. He's not going to be upper echelon defensively in his first year. I don't think he's like a Jeremy Pena type defensive profile, but his arm is still a bit of a question. But like we spoke about, Dansby Swanson's arm is also a bit of a question. Volpe's arm is better than Dansby's. He made all of the routine throws, and having Rizzo over there helps him a whole lot. So yeah, his family was going crazy in section like 212 or 214 over a few sections over from us, which was a fun time. But yeah, I'm really happy to see him on this team. And we didn't get to talk about and appreciate Volpe, being on the team. That announcement came on Sunday with that cool video. And I think it's really cool, man. But it leaves Oswald Peraza in a weird spot in AAA as well.
Yeah, it's a tough spot. I mean, you have to go back to Volpe stealing that bag real quick. His jump wasn't that great. You pointed this out right off the bat. He was pretty flat-footed
Yeah.
as the ball was being released, and then he just took off and he hit another gear like in stride. And he cruised in with that slide. That's not something you can just teach to anyone. I think him and Corbin Carroll, in terms of like the young players in the league right now coming up, are easily the most electric players due to their legs. Just that tool alone is going to provide a lot of stellar offense and defense from both of them. But I'm really excited to see both Volpe and Harrison Bader in the Yankees lineup at one point or another. Having those two legs back to back potentially is going to be a very dangerous threat for this team moving forward. But yeah, in terms of Peraza, it's a tough spot. Don't like that he has to be down in AAA, but it's kind of necessary at this point. The Yankees stayed very true to their word that it was going to be a competition. No one was guaranteed their spot. It was a 3-man race between IKF, Peraza, and then Volpe. I think the only white lie in that statement that it was a 3-man race is that IKF never really had a shot this season at starting at shortstop because they stopped starting him at short in spring training on March 7th or 8th. So he hasn't played shortstop in 3 weeks now. So there's no indication that he's going to be playing shortstop at any point this season for them. But Peraza, he's known apparently for having slow starts throughout his minor league tenure. So that's unfortunate for him. But at the same time, if you want to look at it introspectively, he needs to say, well, Volpe's starting his, workouts in December, January to get ready to go for this season. Volpe went straight to the stadium once he found out that he was getting a chance to actually compete for the position. I can't say that Peraza did or didn't do that. The Yankees have promoted the hell out of Anthony Volpe and advertised the hell out of him. just moving forward and like in recent memory, like they wanted this kid to be known to the general public and the fandom, so that way that they would get warmed up to him before the season started. It never felt that way with Peraza, and we saw him last season, and he was great as like a Yankee once he got called up. However, they also were very reluctant to start him a lot of the time, which does say a lot what they think about him in the grand scope of things. So it's starting to feel like he's more likely to be a trade ship, but they also have said in the past as well, and in recent memory, the up the middle for the future of the Yankees is going to be Peraza and Volpe. So that might mean now that they really are labeling Volpe as that starting shortstop, and they're going to give him ample opportunity to prove that he can stick there. That could also mean that Peraza moves to second base, in which case he would be an elite second baseman. And an obvious fit would be at third base long term because Donaldson is going to be gone by the end of the year. But they also haven't shown that they're going to be willing to use Peraza at third base in the minor league system. So that either leaves us with him playing second base for the Yankees and Gleyber being moved. I think he's not going to be a Yankee in 2+ years anyway. But I think that it's either going to be Gleyber's moved and Peraza gets slotted to second base, or Gleyber stays for the next 2 years and Peraza gets traded. So we're in a very weird position for him, and I do feel for him. But at the end of the day, it was a legitimate competition, and Volpe just tore through it. So, yeah.
Yeah, what I like for Peraza is that he's going to get full run and be an everyday player at AAA. Throughout their entire minor league tenure, Peraza and Volpe were never really teammates. Like they were both the starting shortstop, with Volpe being one level below Peraza. And it was when Peraza got moved up to the major league team that Volpe finally made the step to AAA for only a few games last year, and now Volpe has leapfrogged him. I think Peraza has a legitimate shot with this team in the future, and he'll be getting that run and the opportunity to develop a bit more. I think it would be a disservice to him to be on this loaded infield and not be getting day-to-day play, because right now you have DJ who played a great game yesterday, great defensively, great offensively, was a great table setter. Gleyber, we saw what he can do. He had a 2-run shot to right field, and Gleyber, and he was our DH yesterday. And Gleyber, after hitting a home run, he went to the fans behind home plate and he was like, "I want to hear you." Gleyber, Gleyber hears everything, and he likes New York, and it hurts when, obviously, I would feel similarly to him if my name was in trade talks about this team that invested in me when I was a teenager, and I've debuted for and excelled, to a pretty solid extent. And then Donaldson looked decent yesterday. We were talking about how bad his swing looked, and then we analyzed his next swing, and I was thinking in my head, oh, he got his foot down on time, and then he rips a single to left field, of course. So it's all based on his timing, which seems to be pretty off still. So I like that Peraza. I don't love that he's down, but I like that he'll be able to get the full run. And kind of to what you said, IKF is really off the table. There was not a thought of IKF yesterday other than his intro. Florial ran for Stanton. You're talking defensive replacements. There's really not a need for a defensive replacement when we play that infield. And even if Gleyber's at second, because DJ, Volpe, Donaldson are all plus defenders. Volpe maybe just 1+ on there. So in terms of IKF, is he the next left fielder? I know Stanton played the outfield, but right now there's Franchi Cordero's on the bench. There's Hicks is on the bench. Oswaldo Cabrera is that versatility piece. So, and Gleyber right now is the backup infielder, and you put DJ around. So I don't know. What does that mean for IKF? They've been playing him in the outfield, but then they just signed an outfielder who they didn't even have in camp. It seems like playing IKF in the outfield was the precursor to them not liking and ultimately assigning or releasing Ortega and Calhoun respectively. But yeah, I don't know. I could see Peraza coming up and taking like an IKF role, but I think 1 or 2 infielders have to go really for Peraza to have a shot on the major league team.
Yeah, that's a question of matter of like who's going to get moved at the end of the day, that's the real unknown at this point. And I guess time will tell, but at the same time, like how long is that going to be? One of the downfalls I think of Peraza being just up at AAA is the gap between AA to AAA is not that significant in terms of you're not seeing an uptick of talent or anything like that. the uptick from high A to double A is significant. That's where you see most of the guys that are high end prospects that are about to get called up to the majors, like your Juan Soto's and, you know, Dominguez's and guys like that, who have that insane high upside potential. Whereas the guys in AAA are typically the older dudes that have been around for a little bit longer, that are fringe 40-man roster guys that are just trying to stay afloat and, you know, find a way onto a roster mid-season. So I don't want him brewing there come September. That's a long time for him to be playing against competition that's not really going to benefit him, because at the end of the day, he is ready to play Major League Baseball. He showed it last season. So hopefully he doesn't get burnt out with the Yankees in that sense and just get lost in the system. That would be very unfortunate. And I'm not going to compare him to Florial because they're very different players. They profile very differently, obviously played different positions. But we did see Florial and a few other guys in the system kind of get washed away, and they missed their window where they were at their prime, or like their youth prime as prospects. And it would be really unfortunate to see Peraza fall into that trap as well.
What do you think of this whole outfield situation, given in the spring we were talking Calhoun, Ortega, Florial? We were like, oh, do we even have to consider him? Now we see Calhoun accepted an assignment to the Yankees AAA. Ortega was released and signed. Florial is on the major league team right now. Hicks made the team. IKF was there. And then we signed Franchy Cordero, who's a very interesting player. Franchy Cordero, I initially pulled up his baseball reference, which is not great. Really what you want to look at for Cordero is his StatCast. And in 2022, his average exit velocity was in the middle sigma, the middle tier, the middle 30%. I'm not going to use that terminology. I'm not at work right now. But his max exit velocity, 99th percentile. His sprint speed, 85th percentile. And his outs above average, the 3rd percentile. So they're really taking a chance on some really good potential. Like, tools for Franchy are there. I would feel awful if I were Ortega or Calhoun going through camp, fighting for the spot, and then just them signing Franchy. I don't know. What do you think of the whole outfield situation right now?
Well, it seems like you and Ortega had the right idea, because Ortega immediately, he said, I'm going to head out. I'm going to find a deal somewhere else. And he went to Texas ultimately and signed a minor league deal with them. I assume that's because they do need another outfielder. And even though he's in a minor league deal, he's more likely to break, not camp at this point. The season's here, but he's going to be called up sooner than later. Whereas with the Yankees, who knows if he was going to make it. I'm sure they offered him a platoon position where he'd only be facing righty pitchers, because he's very good against righties, but terrible against lefties. And he did not want to take that offer. So I
don't even know if they assured him that. It was probably, you'll play some games against righties. And that was about it.
So it was like one of those things, like, where if he does get called up, we're saying if. It's a big assumption. We don't know for sure. Like, we don't know when we're going to use you, but if we do use you, it's going to be sparingly in this particular situation. Where I'm sure with a team like the Giants that are kind of lacking in bats, that we saw that yesterday, they could give him a little bit more leeway to play significantly more innings at this point than the Yankees could. So I don't blame him at all for going on. Good luck to him. Best of luck. But at the same time, I do think ultimately he had the most potential between him and Calhoun just to profile as a solid outfielder to break camp. So it is unfortunate seeing him go somewhere else. And Willie Calhoun liked his bat a lot, but at the same time, I've had my grievances. I don't know if he's built to, really man outfield consistently throughout a season. And I'm sure that's part of the issue that the Yankees had as well. He probably profiles better as a good DH, but they don't have room for a DH right now. So that's tough. But then again, the Franchy Cordero situation is really interesting to me, because he's not considered a good defender by any means. I think his route running is very suspect, but because he has that speed tool, maybe they see that as a huge asset. And he does kind of remind me of like a little bit like Esteban Florial with less defensive skills, but maybe more pop in the bat and more big league potential with the bat. But at the same time, you would think at this point they would be looking for more of a defensive first, surefire outfield positional player that can also bat from the left side, that at least it provides some kind of consistency. And where does that leave IKF? Like, we really don't have a good option for him at this point. He, like you said, did not play at all yesterday. And who knows if he's going to get reps in center field, like they say. He looked fine out there playing in minor league ball, or not minor league ball, playing in spring training. He looked completely fine playing center, but he also wasn't tested at all. His arm is not that great, but he's thrown some decent ones in, I guess. Like, there's just not a lot to hang the hat on for IKF being on this team anymore, and that's unfortunate to say because he could have been a fine utility man, but there is simply no space for him at this rate, and the whole Franchy Cordero situation kind of complicates everything a little bit more. I still think we're going to see some kind of move in the next few days to at least clear up a little bit of payroll. I think IKF is the clear indicator of someone that's no longer, has a proper place on this team. So I think that he's the one to go, and he clears $6 million in payroll if they do that. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, Franchy's really interesting. I just looked on the Yankees roster website. They have him listed on the depth chart as a first baseman and an outfielder, and as all three outfield spots. So maybe that's the path for him. But yeah, like we think of backup outfielders. We know Hicks isn't going to be a pinch runner, and neither is Franchy, really. Like, we saw Florial run for Stanton yesterday, but there's not a lot of speed coming off the bench, which the Yankees usually like. Like, the speed guys are Bader, who when he's there is going to be your starting center fielder, or Volpe, who when is there is going to be your shortstop. So whether that's like a DJ, Donaldson, Glaber, even on the bench, none of those guys are going to do it. It might be IKF right now is the pinch runner if Florial's gone, but even IKF is not like a game-changing base runner. Love this lane for Franchy. I guess we'll see how he looks in like batting practice with the hitting coaches. He didn't even get a full spring to see his potential. So I'm intrigued by that. I like the assignment for Calhoun accepting it, understanding Stanton's injury volatility, because I think there is a lane for him to be a bench piece and get a lot of DH reps if he is on the team with Stanton down. But like you said, there's not a lot of space for DH. So him being on the team, I don't think he adds value in that defensive presence that we need. Like you said, I think a move has to be coming. And Boone was openly talking about a move as late as yesterday morning. And then we saw a minor move today with a name who I've rarely really seen with the Rays. Did he even throw last year?
No, he didn't throw in 2021. Colston Brewer.
Colston Brewer.
Which, like, I'm convinced anytime the Yankees pick up someone from the Rays or whoever to be in the pen, and he's starting off in AAA, by the way. Anytime Matt Blake gets his hands on someone like that, I'm convinced that they're going to become a top flight reliever at some point or another. So I'm not mad about it. Like, they gave up cash consideration, so it's not like anything crazy. And the same thing with Franchy Cordero. It's like that's $1 million deal if he makes the big league roster. And then if he gets sent down to AAA, then it's, I think, 180,000. So it's like very low risk financially. So like I have no issues with either of those moves, but with Brewster being sent down to AAA, it's a matter of time because I think they're trying to add one more starting pitcher, and it sounded like that guy was a free agent at this point. So I don't know who's available. I don't know if someone cleared waivers or whatever happened. DFA or something along those lines, but it sounds like they're bringing someone in. I flirted with the idea of it being Zach Britton, even though I know obviously Zach Britton is a reliever, but he's also a lefty, and they only have one of those being Wandy Peralta. So
yeah, and the Yankees are running with only 7 relief pitchers right now. So we made the assumption of 8 when we were putting our roster together, doing the 5-man rotation and having 13 pitchers and 13 position players. So the Yankees are running with the 5-man bench, including 2 backup outfielders, a utility guy, a catcher, and an infielder, all on the roster. So yeah, I think they're looking for pitching, so whether that's Clark to the bullpen or maybe Brito to the bullpen or goes down, whoever comes up, because the Yankees played yesterday and they knew Cole was going to give length. I still think they used more pitchers. They didn't need to use Jonathan Loaisiga yesterday. it was all. Let me finish this tangent, and I'll go back into that one. But yeah, the Yankees only went 7 because they had the rest day today, which makes sense. But that shows you that they're anticipating moves, and so before their game tomorrow, they're leaving that option open because they don't need a full bullpen right now, unless God forbid that game went like 19 innings or something, then we'd be a little screwed. But I'm sure Clark or even like Brito would have just come in and thrown like um whoever was on their throw day would have come in and thrown 3 or 4. But it was funny yesterday. I listen to the Michael K show sometimes after games, especially if K is coming back on after the day game. And Don LaGreca, understandably, because some older Yankees radio callers are like the worst and only see pessimism. So we like
Yeah.
to give some optimism. But Don was talking about a lot of the sentiments that we had to start the episode. Their new guy debuted, like their big re-signing Judge came back and excelled. Easy win. Your ace went 6 innings clean. Like, what can you complain about as a Yankees fan? What
Yeah.
is there possibly to complain about yesterday? And I have one major qualm, which I think we're going to see come up the rest of the year. And it's an issue to me because I think it's emblematic of how we've mismanaged the bullpen in the past and going forward. The Yankees were up 3-0 with Wandy Peralta having a runner on. And if there's an injury, I eat my words. But it doesn't seem right now after more than 24 hours that there's an injury with Wandy. He was struggling a little bit, but there were 2 outs in the 7th inning.
Yeah.
Um, and they brought in Loizica, and I don't know. I think you kind of just, and it was the 7th hitter coming up of a notoriously poor power hitting, notoriously bad San Francisco Giants lineup this year, to be frank. Um, I think you just let Wandy fight through. He had only thrown 13 pitches, I believe. He wasn't even working that hard. He probably didn't have his location. They might have been concerned about an injury. I don't know. He didn't have a great spring, but they brought in Loizica, who was warming up in the pen, threw 2 pitches, got the third out of the inning. So that left them with 2 options. You either burn an arm on, and you burn a day of Loizica, because it's not just 2 pitches that he threw. It's 15 warm-up pitches and going through his routine like that. That's a part of a reliever's routine that you have to be cognizant of. Like, that's why you can't just warm guys up willy-nilly the way you can in MLB The Show, because it doesn't count. So we thought, okay, now they're going to put Loizica down, sit on the bench, which ended up being a long offensive inning. So I think that might have made the decision for them. If that were a shorter inning, Loizica would have had to go down, sit for 10 minutes, come back up and pitch. Because we put up a few runs the next inning and it was a bit of a rally. Ron Marinaccio came in and threw the 7th, or through the 8th rather, and then he ended up closing out the game, right?
Yeah.
He went 2 innings.
He went 6 outs. Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, good for Marinaccio if he's going to be that guy and to go 6 outs. So that's a good thing that we saw. But it was looking like, it was going to be Loizica to Marinaccio to Holmes, which all of a sudden you're burning 4 relievers on a day that Garrett Cole gave you 6 innings and you're up
Yeah.
by 5. It was, why do you set yourself up that way? And good for Ron for coming in and throwing, especially with the off day tomorrow. They're probably not going to use him till the Philly series now, or maybe Sunday. But yeah, I don't know. That was an issue that I had. How do you feel about that move?
Yeah, Wandy was visibly frustrated, to say the least, when that happened. When Boone came out to the mound, he threw down his bag, like very, very viscerally. You can just see that it was irking him, and I immediately said, "Oh no, I hope he's not injured." And it seemed like you said the trainer didn't come out. The trainer didn't come out at the end of the day, which is a good sign, obviously. But it just seemed like an unnecessary extra little stop to be made for a victory that was pretty clear cut in terms of the path to victory. Just like, I don't know why they felt the need to kind of overmanage in that position, but I'm sure that they wanted to see maybe one more extra arm. So that way it's just kind of give the guys a little bit of a tune up before they really get into the thick of their schedule after an off day. Maybe that has something to play into it. But I mean, I really do like Ron Marinaccio. I think that the way that he carries himself and his demeanor and then that changeup are all characters of someone that I would potentially want to see get a good deal of closing situations either this year or next year. He's a young kid who's just got the right demeanor for it. So I did like, and I did appreciate seeing him out there, but at the same time, it just seems a little excessive to use him for 2 innings and then kind of screw over Wandy and Lowe by just having them throw like a funky 7th inning. I don't know. It didn't correlate for me. So we're in the same boat there.
Yeah, but very minor
Yeah.
detail.
And this is
Hopefully,
us nitpicking. This is
yeah.
us 100% nitpicking.
But the thing to look out for is the Yankees. And I think Talking Yanks was on this a lot last year, and they actually brought it up with Boone, who evidently didn't care when asked about it. But the Yankees, more than any team in Major League Baseball, how do I phrase this? Their relievers come in to the fewest clean innings. So that being like to start an inning, no outs, no runners on base. They're putting their closers in a lot of 1, 2 out scenarios in which there are runners on, more so than any team in baseball, which I think part of it might align with the mindset of these closers, with the exception of Clay Holmes. And that might be why Clay Holmes is still the closer, because he'll get a clean inning every time. But, you think of Michael King and Wandy and Tommy Kahnle. These are guys who you kind of rely on to mop up. And so
But that's
I
the
don't
thing is,
hate it necessarily, but
Wandy is Wandy, and he's like the king of getting out of sticky situations. And all he had was a runner on third base, and
so let
no,
him get out of his own, right?
exactly. So there's
Yeah.
no point in bringing in someone to get out of a situation that's really not going to escalate because you've got the perfect mound, or perfect person on the mound right now to de-escalate that situation, and that is Wandy. He's shown it time and time again last season. Like he was the high leverage king for a reason. Um, so it's just, I don't know, it's a little bit funky, but it is what it is. Like that they're not going to change their approach, I think, overnight. Hopefully it was just like a little indicator that they wanted to get some extra reps and kind of like play with situational stuff because they did have a comfortable lead. Um, so I guess the most we can do is hope that they just don't overmanage when we get into strings of games where we're playing 3, 4 game series against good competition who have like, we don't want to burn any arms, essentially is what I'm getting to. And we don't want to demoralize some of our best pitchers for, having minimal traffic on base.
Yep, I agree. So the Yankees are on pace to go 162-0. So anything less than that would be a failure. Aaron Judge is on pace to hit 162 home runs as well. So that's our expectation this year, right? After one day.
Bar is set high, and I will have a Frank the Tank like meltdown if anything else happens otherwise.
All right. Anything else you want to get off your chest before we break?
I mean, not really. I think we like kind of covered everything going into the season so far. Maybe keep an eye on what happens with Brian Reynolds with his potential contract negotiations. Those have been pretty hot of late. It sounds like he's kind of stuck on, I think, 109 mil for like 6 years or 7 years, something like that. It's very similar to the deal that Andres Jimenez just signed with the Guardians. So I hope that he doesn't sign that. It seems like the major holdup right now is an opt-out clause. He definitely
Or a
wants.
few of them, I think, even.
Yeah, I think one is after year 3 or 4. The first one's after year 4. So that's pretty significant. I mean, I can understand why. Like he wants to see that this team is making legitimate progress at becoming a contender. So he's not asking. Like he came down pretty far from his asking price, which I think was closer to 150 million initially. Now like 109, 110, whatever that may be, is pretty. That's a nice little compromise from him. But I mean, at the end of the day, the Pirates need to be willing to give this guy what he wants because he has the ability to be a franchise player. And he kind of is the franchise player at the moment. Like O'Neal Cruz is going to be a fantastic talent for them, but it's also not clear what kind of player he's going to end up being. Like he's a freakish talent. He's got these intangible tools that you can't teach, but he's very unpolished still. Like his defense is kind of all over the place and he is still high strikeout. So, I mean, Reynolds does strike out quite a bit, but he's also the type of player that you can build around at any given time. And I don't think he's even tapped into his full potential yet, but you also have to provide the right pieces around him. So that's definitely a storyline I would keep an eye on. I would also just keep an eye on what type of roster moves the Yankees make because they're clearly not done. Like they're just something has to give. So I think those are the two big ones we need to watch out for.
Yeah, and on the Reynolds and O'Neal Cruz, and if you're looking at a trade for Reynolds for the Yankees, I mean, Peraza is really your highest offer in terms of major league ready talent, Peraza and or Glaber. And O'Neal Cruz throws the ball at like 100 miles an hour across the diamond from shortstop. He's a very tall, freakish athlete. I mean, right now he's still polishing his hit tool, his contact tool, but the high end production that he can give you from the shortstop position and his solid defense make it hard because you're not going to slide him to third because Key Bryan is one of the best defenders in all of baseball at third base. Maybe you put Peraza to second or Glaber to second, whoever would go over. It was so cool to see O'Neal Cruz take Hunter Green deep on like a liner to right field yesterday. It's like 102 miles an hour in and like 115 out or something crazy like that.
Freak
Uh,
versus freak.
yeah. But back to Reynolds, I mean, obviously we're talking about a lot of big money. Full disclosure, I'm going to side with players over owners 99% of the time with these things. I think it's very fair for Reynolds to come down for his asking price, to come down to 110 million. Again, a lot of money, but he's putting money on the table where his value is elsewhere. And that is the money that he's making for this team, this billion-dollar organization, who I think he deserves to have team assurance and incentives for the team within a window that if they invest money in him and he's taking a discount to play for them, that they're in turn investing that discount that he gives them in the team. And like, I don't think that the Pirates should just be able to sit there and make money off of a shitty team at a beautiful stadium and people are going to watch them and come to Pittsburgh and stuff just to watch them play.
Yeah.
So I would keep an eye out on that because I think they're very far apart. I think the owners no, the owners want to make sure that their investment, the money that they put aside, is going to last for a while. And Reynolds wants to make sure that him leaving money on the table to stay with a team, to be comfortable with his family, is going to lead to winning baseball. And knowing the Pirates ownership, I don't know if that's a plan that they have.
Yeah.
They have Cruz, they have Key Bryan, they have the pieces to go there, and they have Brian Reynolds, a young, marketable, really good star. So we'll see. I don't know how good the Yankees' chances are right now, but I could see them falling out towards the deadline, and then the Pirates just looking to want to get some value out of that trade.
Yeah, and I think the last trade proposal that I typically don't like doing these things just because I think it's so difficult to gauge like how teams value certain players. But we talked about this like last week is I think if you are going to move either a Gleyber Torres or a Peraza, and Peraza's the likely option for this specific team, the Miami Marlins, I think you target an Edward Cabrera as a starting pitcher because we're kind of at the point where you don't fully trust Luis Severino to stay healthy for an entire season. There's just no indication that he is going to be able to give you 150, 160 innings just yet. So I don't see the Yankees shelling out a big contract to him. So you are going to have to fill a rotation position, I think, at the end of the season. I think the perfect way to do that is trade for a young, controllable pitcher. Edward Cabrera is controllable until 2029 is when he hits free agency. He's 24 years old, will be 25, I think, soonish. But if you watch his makeup, like the way that he pitches and just like watch some of his performances, he is very similar to Sandy. He has that hard sinking two seamer, and then he has a crazy changeup that's at 93, 94, and he's able to pinpoint command it. So this is a guy that has insane upside. He hasn't really had that many innings logged as a major leaguer just yet. This is his second season and probably his first full season. But at the same time, he's going to be one of those guys that goes under the radar for a little bit. And once the league fully figures out like he's the real deal, a lot of teams are going to be barking up the Marlins tree trying to get a piece of him. So the Yankees do have the actual tools to make the Marlins a lot better by sending a Peraza and then maybe like Everson Pereira and then throw in IKF as sweetener and maybe one more mid-level prospect because it is a lot of years of control for a guy like Cabrera. And then that also improves the middle infield of the Marlins. So
Yeah, and they have a surplus of pitching, and that's really their weakness there. So I think the asking price will be high if they know their player well. I mean, based off of our analysis and all of the projectable kind of metrics that you have with Edward Cabrera, he seems to be a promising young star. Um, that's about it on players. I'm surprised we went this long without talking about it. How'd you feel about the pitch clock yesterday?
I loved it. It was great. I
Me
think, did you
too.
see that
Damn.
one video about Jeff McNeil getting I think he got called a strike, or he was granted a strike because Polar Bear was having like a long time getting back to first base after a foul ball. Like, those are the little caveats that we haven't ran into yet in Yankees games. Obviously, there's one game to work with, but I think that's one thing that might need to be like ironed out a little bit. There's like a few kinks with it, but in terms of the pace of play, it's fantastic. We were on the train heading back home by 4 p.m. on the dot. So it was a 2 hour and 30-minute long game. It breezed by, but there was still never really a dip in intensity. Like, I think the fans were fully engaged with it the entire time. You don't really fully, I mean, you do see the clock behind home plate. We noticed it, but at the same time, it is subtle, so it's not distracting. Um, I think it just keeps everything in a nicer pace, and it's going to take a little bit of time for some of the batters to adjust, but I think it's what's best for the sport ultimately.
I loved it, and I think it helps the two strike counts at the stadium when and two strikes, two outs when people are upstanding. Because before,
Yeah.
sometimes that would last for like 3 minutes because batter would step out, pitcher would step off. Like Jake said, I mean, the game started at about, I think first pitch was listed at 105, probably happened 106, 107. They made sure they ran a tight ship pregame because Garrett Cole couldn't be mad this year. So no Billy Crystal on the field. But yeah, we walked to the Metro North 153rd Street station, like a 10-minute walk. And I had internet issues loading my ticket, and yeah, we were on the 4 o'clock train. So yeah, the game ended about 2 hours, like 35 minutes or 2 hours and 40 minutes. Obviously, a non-existent Giants offense. They could have left their bats at home, but I really like it. I think it's really good for the game. The attention was there. Still a good amount of time in between innings, the same amount of time. So if you need your breaks, you get them. But when ball is in play, like everyone is on it. There's no kind of dozing off and whatnot. So enjoyed it. It's also going to help offense. Like Logan Webb burned a throw over on Volpe while he was standing on first base because he's a threat. So that helped Volpe not have to be as aggressive with his jump because he knew that Logan Webb couldn't pick off. He could take a bigger lead and not need to jump as much. So yeah, it was good. I think it's great for the game. As someone who goes to a lot of games, I'm really gonna love this. This is gonna shave like a half hour off my commute every day.
Yeah, you got to test Metro North out for the first time ever, and just because you had the time to do it. Like, there was no other reason
I
really.
know. Yeah, and the Long Island Railroad to Grand Central, saving my life. I'm gonna get home like an hour earlier every time after games this year, and I'm so happy for it. So maybe we'll have time to record some episodes then. Maybe that's my transition out of here.
Yeah, we
So
could probably do post game shows, honestly.
yeah. All right, but that's it for me. Anything else?
I think we covered everything. Great start to the season. Let's hope they ride that momentum.
Yep, and the Yankees are in first place right now, and we hope that never slips, but we'll see how that goes along the way. We'll be giving you a lot of content coming up, series reviews, team previews. We didn't give you a Giants preview, and I'm not that interested in giving you one. I don't think they're really worth our time. Go D-backs if you're putting down bets. This is my takeaway from this episode. Over Cole strikeouts, over Volpe stolen bases, under Giants wins. That's about it for now. Over Judge homers, if you can still take it at a decent value. But yeah, that's about where I'm at right now. But we'll be giving you that content. Follow us at Pinstripe Pulse Pod on Instagram and TikTok, at Pinstripe_Pulse on Twitter. We'll be tweeting throughout the games when we're not going to them a good bunch. So follow along there. Check out June Lee's new article on Anthony Volpe. We'll give that a shout out as well. And the road to 162-0 starts tomorrow. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Peace.